Hello and welcome. I'm Christine Barlow, Managing Editor of FC&S, Expert Coverage Interpretation, and today I'm here to moderate our webinar on when baby boomers retire, are you ready for the insurance knowledge gap? It's going to be a really interesting webinar. We have guest speakers today. We have Cassie Young, who's the Workforce Development Director for the Big I, Kentucky, and we have Gary Barber, who's owner and insurance training facilitator of Barber Insurance Navigation. They both have a ton of experience in training and in dealing with people new to the industry. So first, let's do some housekeeping. The webinar is being recorded. We're going to have some handouts, which we will send to you in a follow-up email with a recording of the webinar, and that will go to you in the next day or two. We want you to ask questions. In the right-hand corner of your screen, you have a control panel. Simply open that, look at the questions tab, and type in your question. We will answer your questions as we see them. Sometimes it takes me a minute or two to see the question because I get excited and get carried away, but we will, discuss your questions as they come in. Also, once we get done with our webinar today, we're going to have a survey. We want you to tell us what you thought of the webinar and what kind of topics you would like to see in the future. We do webinars somewhat regularly, but we like to do webinars that people actually want to see. So we appreciate topics that our attendees give us. We've done a number of topics that attendees have suggested because, well, they're good ideas and it's pretty cool. Also, we are having a giveaway. So to be eligible for the giveaway, you have to answer all the polling questions. As I said, this is going to be interactive. We're going to have 3 polling questions. And if you answer all the polling questions, you'll be put in a drawing for a CLCS Commercial Lines Coverage Specialist Designation Program. It's worth $559. And what it is it's a professional learning program for anybody seeking to master commercial lines coverage. It's really cool. It's got 10 components. You get 4 coverage guidebooks discussing, business auto, CGL, workers' comp, commercial property. You've got 5 e-learning courses and a study guide. And once you complete the training and pass all the classes, then you get a nifty neato digital badge. So that's our giveaway. And so pay attention because you have to answer all the polling questions. Doesn't matter if you answer right or wrong, and there really are no wrong answers to the polling questions because this is really a discussion-based kind of a thing, but you need to answer the polling questions to be entered into the drawing. So let's go ahead and get started. We've been hearing for years concerns about how more and more experienced insurance professionals are leaving the industry by retiring and taking their wealth of knowledge with them. But how bad is it really? I mean, I've been hearing this for a number of years. So how bad is this really? Well, let's look at the numbers. In the third quarter of 2020, 28.6 million baby boomers retired as a whole. That's a lot of people. Now, the pandemic increased the numbers some, but not enormously. The baby boomers is one of the largest generations that's been around. By 2030, all the boomers will be over the age of 65. And that's a large group of people. In 2018, 52 million people were over 65. Now, admittedly, they're not all working in insurance, but still, it's an awful lot of people crossing an awful lot of industries. By 2050, 88 million people will be over 65. Now, even with more and more people waiting until they're older to retire because people are healthier, they're going to live to 100, and their 401ks don't have enough money in them to get them, to let them retire at 65 and live to be 100. Even with more and more people waiting until they're older to retire, a large number of people are continually leaving the workforce. Because when you look at it, 2030 is just a couple of years away. So by that time, all the baby boomers will be over 65. Well, so that's the tail end of the baby boomers. a number of baby boomers have already retired because the baby boomer generation goes from 1955 to 64. So that's a large span of people, and a lot of those folks have already retired, leaving a gap already. So we know that the insurance industry is facing a knowledge gap, a knowledge gap. Now, on top of that, we know insurance isn't something you can just pick up really quickly and easily. It's a complex subject. There are a lot of variables. There's a lot to learn when you're dealing with coverages for all types of business. And there's a steep learning curve. And of course, mistakes can be a big deal. Mistakes can result in either too much being paid for a claim or claims being denied, which can get really hairy, coverages being missed, E&O claims, and lawsuits against carriers. So we're going to talk about all this today. How to transfer knowledge to new industry professionals and develop the next generation of talent. So what we're going to do here is we're going to launch polling question number 1. And we want you to, there we go, the poll is open. So our question is, do you think there is a problem with people entering the industry not having enough industry knowledge? What are your thoughts on this? Do you think there's a problem with people coming into insurance not having enough industry knowledge, or do you not think that that's the case? Please answer the poll for us. We'll give you a minute or two. And we'll see what everybody thinks, because again, we want it to be interactive. Looks like 88% of you have answered the poll. Come on, you want to enter the giveaway. We want you to answer our poll here. And remember, there's no right or wrong answer because we're looking at opinions. So here we go. All right, looks like we've got almost everyone has answered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the poll and share the answer. And let me share the answer, which shows that 83% of you said yes, that you think there's a problem with people entering the industry and not having enough industry knowledge. And I agree with you. That's a huge thing. So let's talk about it. Let's talk to Cassie and Gary. So what is the background of new hires? So I'm asking our panelists, Cassie and Gary, what are you seeing with the new hires in insurance? What kind of backgrounds do they have?
And I think we we have people that come from just sales, so they don't actually have an insurance background. You know, I don't think a 40-hour course is quite enough to learn everything you need to know about it. So even if they already are licensed and maybe they haven't worked in an agency yet to gain that industry experience, you know, just getting that license isn't quite enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I see a lot of people coming into the industry from a couple of sources. One thing, of course, is other sales professions. You see people coming into the industry that are family or relatives of the retirees. And you also see people coming in from the teaching field. You know, that's one of the other fields where you see people, teachers and coaches, coming into the field. And most of the time, those people have the aptitude for the sales part of insurance, but the technical part is something they're not really familiar with. So that's one of the big challenges I've seen in the industry over the last 30 years.
I agree, Gary. Definitely the family members coming in, and you know, they've kind of grown up around it, but you know, maybe they went off to college and then came in, and now they're going to take over the agency. So yeah, there's just a little bit of a gap, I think, in some of that.
Yeah. Well, and in my experience, you know, one of the things I have jokingly said for a long time is that insurance is the bastion of liberal arts majors who couldn't get a job in their field. Because you know, I've worked in claims, I've worked in underwriting, and you know, the history majors, the sociology majors, the English majors, the people who went into teaching and realized they either didn't like teaching, didn't like kids, couldn't deal with the parents, the the psych majors who did see, and somebody chimes in, he's a political science major. You know, that's kind of where we all ended up. We couldn't get a real job that paid enough money, and we ended up in insurance. So there's not the background. Now, you know, I'm the tail end of the baby boomers. So, you know, when I was in college, there wasn't a risk management major. It didn't exist. That kind of thing didn't exist. So, and I'm seeing that that's starting to develop there. So what knowledge gaps are you guys seeing?
Well, to speak on the risk management and insurance degree, we are lucky here in Kentucky that EKU, Eastern Kentucky University, does have that. What's unfortunate for us on the independent side of things is most of those kids, they graduate and they go to the company side. So we're having a hard time telling these students, hey, there's another opportunity over here on the independent side in the agency, you know, not just going with the company and being an underwriter or whatever it is. So there's that. Kind of trying to tell people that, you know, we exist over here too. Give us a chance.
Yeah. Yeah. Looks like. Go ahead, Gary.
I'm going to say that there's a big knowledge gap, I think, between what people think insurance is and then once you get into it, what it actually is. You know, the risk management programs are great, but they focus on the technical side and don't really emphasize the sales side of it that much. And then you've got actuarial science, which is all about the math side of it. And those people usually don't have the aptitude on the sales side either. So it's trying to find somebody that can bridge that gap and have that information and gain that information on the insurance side. And like I've said in the past, one of the big challenges is where does the training come from? You know, most of the states have a pre-licensing requirement, but the pre-licensing requirement is rather a short period of time. Even in New York, where it's like 92 hours of classroom training, that's it. So how much do they actually learn? How much do they actually retain, you know, after they have their licenses? So where do they go to get training? And I think that's one of the other challenges we face as an industry.
It is, yeah. And for us as an association, we try to fill that gap for all of our members and offer them the hiring, training, licensing, CE designation programs, offer all that stuff to them because 80% of our members have 5 or fewer in their office. So they don't have like the size, the money, whatever to bring in all their own training. So we can help do that for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a few. And I.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I work as an independent contractor for Keystone Insurers Group, which is again a group that has small agencies for the most part. And we try to do the same thing all the way from hiring, you know, sales training, technical training, prospecting training, all of those things to help those smaller agencies do the things that insurance companies used to do. And now they're doing less of that. They're doing more of their own training. So that's also a big challenge.
Right. I'd like to throw in a few comments from the audience here. Comment from one is that experience is the best teacher, which we all know. You know, the more you're in the field, the more you experience some things you just can't learn by text. Another comment is that it has more to do with lack of one-on-one training once someone is an employee. It seems that all training is done via computer modules, and they don't bring a new employee along as fast as the training that this person had 25 years ago in an office setting. And just a comment here, when I started as an underwriter working for Nationwide Insurance, when we went through like 3-4 months of intense in-house underwriting training. There were 3 of us trainees, and we got to a point where we would sit in a conference room and they would pull up applications and we would walk through them. Is this eligible? Is this covered? And we do that 8 hours a day. So yeah, there's a lot to be said for one-on-one, going through, you know, the scenarios one after the other to really learn how it goes. Another comment is that I found that if the program has faculty that came from the agency side of the industry, that there is more balance. And I'm sure that has a factor as well, where what part of the industry somebody is from. When I went from claims to underwriting, I realized that, you know, there was a lot that claims knew and there was a lot that underwriting knew. But if they had a chance to talk together, everything made more sense, because there were things that, you know, claims couldn't do that underwriting could do. That made a big difference. Okay, so polling question number 2. Let's go on to polling question number 2. Does your company offer the resources or training you need to bridge the knowledge gap? Let me launch that out there and see what everybody thinks. Does your company offer the resources, training you need to bridge the knowledge gap? Let you all think about that for a minute. Give us your answers. And while everyone's answering, I've got just a couple of comments here. That networking and finding a mentor is good and early. Good and early, that is essential to someone's success, and I can absolutely see that as well. Let's see, what other comments do we have here? This is great. I'm loving the comments coming in. Let's see. Another comment is that insurance carriers do not invest in training programs like they did in the 90s and early 2000s. It's a shame to hear that, because I started at Nationwide in 1987, and the training I got from them there was really intensive. We did a lot of in-house training in the office. I went to basic claims school in Columbus for 3 weeks. They did a ton of training. All right, last few seconds for the poll. Does your company offer the resources, training you need to bridge the knowledge gap? I'm going to go ahead and close it off here, and I'm going to share the results. 62% of you said yes, that's awesome, and 38% of you said no, that's not so awesome.
I do feel like this translates to our membership here. So if I'm talking about our company partners, not our agency members, we do have some that take CE classes with us. Like, they're not getting it through their company, but a majority are, because they're so big, and they're, you know, the Safecos and the Nationwides and all of that.
Right.
Yeah, interesting.
Super. Yeah, that's interesting too. All right, so let us move on a little bit. Okay, let me see here. Okay, so how have you dealt with the gap in the past, the gap in knowledge and training? Cassie and Gary, how do you feel about the gap? With everyone saying, you know, 62% say they're getting the training in-house, but there's 38% that aren't. So there's definitely a gap there. People aren't getting the training in-house.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've seen as a key, and somebody made a comment before about training coming from the agency side. I started in underwriting for Nationwide in 1980. Right. But I moved into the sales side as an agent in 1989. And what you see is having somebody as a mentor in an agency that has a sales or marketing background can really be a real benefit to a new producer. One of the other things I've seen is some of the larger agencies have their new sales or marketing hires start out in underwriting and doing the underwriting first. Some of the bigger agencies require them to do it for like a year in-house underwriting before they become salespeople. And I think that helps too, but again, they need to have a mentor in the agency that's got a background in sales that can really help them navigate all the pitfalls that are out there. Because I've knocked on a lot of doors, I've called from the yellow pages, I've called from the white pages, and it can get pretty frustrating and pretty discouraging. And if you have a mentor that says, hey, here's an approach, here's a way to do that, that can really help deal with that gap and get people trained in a fairly reasonable length of time.
Okay, question for you. So mentoring is a great idea, but with everybody retiring, where did you get the mentors?
So the training that we do at Keystone, we require that somebody in the agency be a mentor. And one of the keys to that is finding a person that's willing and able to be a mentor. Because sometimes people may have the ability to be a mentor, but they may not want to be. Maybe their book of business is extremely large. Maybe they've got some other concerns. So it's finding the right person to do it. The person has time. Sometimes agency principals don't have enough time because of all the things they're doing to manage the agency. So finding the right person, and you see a wide range of mentors, and the ones who are engaged with that person on a daily basis seem to be the ones that have the most success getting those people to transition and get through that gap successfully.
Okay, I've got a couple of comments here from our audience that about mentoring. One individual says mentoring can be successful, but it depends on the mentor and their work ethic. And as you just said, it depends on the mentor and how much time they have to spend with the person. Another person chimed in and said retired people can still act as mentors and possibly be a better one with more time on their hands. And if you can get connected to some of the retired folks, because a lot of folks retire and then realize that they're kind of, there's nothing on TV. Let's face it. Let's be real here. And they don't want to be Walmart greeters. You retire, you're tired of selling and underwriting and handling claims, but you want something to do. Mentoring could very much be a way people could still contribute and help the industry as a whole, and give them something to do that beats hanging out at Walmart. Or you go to Dunkin' Donuts every morning and have a donut and coffee with the old folks. Associations connections are great for mentors as well. That's another very good idea. And
sorry, Christine.
Go ahead, Cassie.
We created an apprenticeship program that heavily uses this mentor piece. So we start with high school students, and we're trying to get young people into the industry. So that's the big push here. So in their high school classes, they're taking business and marketing and finance and insurance specific course all through their school. And then they work in the office. So they take 144 hours of education, and then they work in the office for 2,169 hours. So they get all that on-the-job training accompanied with, that classroom learning. Then we also, as the association, we pay for all their new hire training. Once it's time for them to take their pre-licensing course and exam, we foot the bill for all of that. So we help match up a school, find a student with one of our agencies, and then in that agency they figure out who's going to be the mentor, and that person then takes the mentee under their wing. But we also encourage and have it kind of written in the plan where the apprentice will sit with kind of everyone that works in that office. Some of our offices only have a couple people in them, some might have 10, 15. They really get a feel for some different things. But that on-the-job training, I think, is a really key piece of learning insurance. Like we said earlier, 40 hours of a pre-licensing class isn't enough to know what you're doing.
Exactly. I've got another comment here from someone that the Louisiana Department of Insurance adopted the INVEST program as a tool in their careers in insurance program, and INVEST is sponsored by the IIABA, and it teaches high school and college students about insurance from literacy and career standpoints, which is a great idea.
And I use INVEST as part of our apprenticeship program. So love INVEST, love that IIABA has done that for us, and I've been trying to get it in every high school in Kentucky the past few years. So that's my end goal. Whether or not they have our apprenticeship program, they can still have the INVEST program. It is free. So if anyone in here knows a teacher or a school that wants it, it is 100% free. Please contact me and I will get you the info, and we will get them all of the books and lesson plans and materials, like I said, all free.
Awesome. That is fabulous.
All right,
great.
One of the other things I think is a key to mentoring is providing the mentors with material and some information that helps them not only know what the student is doing in the training class, but also gives them some direction on the things they can talk about. Our mentoring program provides some additional assignments and tasks that they can assign to those sales trainees. And that gives people as a mentor kind of a direction they can use, which I think is a big help.
Awesome. Yeah, INVEST is a national program. Someone asked that, so I wanted to address that. That's a national program.
Yes.
And that just sounds awesome. Let's see. I've got another comment here. Let me look at this. Another part to bridging the gap and attracting more young talent to the industry is to have companies and agencies reflect a more diverse workplace. And we're seeing more of that. I saw something not that long ago about the industry trying to be more diverse with all sorts of different people coming into the industry. All right, let's see. So let's talk about, we've been talking about the knowledge gap. And I've got a quick question here. How do we get in touch with Cassie regarding INVEST? And we will get you hooked up with Cassie. That's easy enough. We'll get you hooked up afterwards. So what happens if we don't fill this knowledge gap? Cassie, you've said 40 hours gets you licensed, but it leaves you with an awful lot of stuff you don't know. What do we do?
And for us, we're really trying to help our small agencies with a perpetuation plan. Like, what are they going to do? You know, so if they don't have people coming into the industry and anyone to take over, they're selling to, you know, one of these big guys. And for us as an association, then we're losing members too. So we want to help keep everyone in business and have a plan in place and help fill that gap that they need for the training. You know, our apprenticeship guide is over 100 pages. It has checklists of everything that our agents need to do to mentor their apprentice. And then all of the training and classes that they'll be taking. It just gives them everything they need. So we really try to set everybody up to be successful in the program and hopefully get them a trained and licensed employee that will stay forever, that will buy their agency from them, and we'll all live happily ever after.
Yep, and one of the challenges with training is, you know, if somebody's in the sales career, you know, how are they being compensated during the early part of their career while they're going through training? Because I've seen people have so much pressure on the sales side that the training takes a back seat because they've got to make sales, they've got to validate whatever, you know, compensation program they're on. And I see the ones that are more successful realize it's an investment up front, give some time or, you know, some actual time set aside for training at the beginning of their career, and then, you know, over time, of course, they transition into a more sales-oriented compensation plan.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I have a comment here from someone who has one of their high school interns coming back and interning through college at his request, which is fabulous. You know, we all know the insurance industry. Everybody thinks it's dull and boring, but really it's quite fascinating. And at FC&S, we've hired a number of legal research interns. They do research for us for some of our publications. And we've successfully brainwashed 2 and hired them as editors. So, you know, it's doable. You know, when you expose people to insurance, you can get them into the industry. And I think that's one of the things.
Here that sells our insurance, she was working in an agency while she went to college getting a criminal justice degree. And guess who's still in insurance, you know, 30 years later. So
there you go. Someone else mentions, you know, educate on social media like Instagram. Their company is trying to do that, and they also get clients that way, but they also educate the public, and public education is huge. Educating the public as to how insurance works and what jobs are available is just a huge thing. We've got a criminal justice major out there.
I'll tell Christy she's not alone.
Let's see, what else have we got? Another comment is that there's an opportunity for succession planning project with the intention of preserving small agencies for the benefit of the association and consumers who enjoy a community-based provider. And that passes down tradition as well as wealth. And that's a big thing. A lot of people don't understand insurance and they think they can buy it on the internet, which just drives me nuts because no, don't do that. That's just such a bad idea in so many ways.
The bane of my existence is this cheap CE where you can get all your hours for like $20. Like, no, and you can't get 24 hours in 2 hours. I'm sorry, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about the cheap CE classes. They drive you nuts. What else do you want to say about it?
Well, I don't, like, we have agency principals that use it and then their whole offices do too. And it's like, I don't know how to change their mind that education's important, and that this is not the way to educate yourself or your staff. So I have a really hard time with that, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's seen as a requirement, and so people sometimes look at it and say, you know what, I want to get this done as quickly as possible. I know a lot about the insurance industry, especially the experienced people, so why do I need to go to another ethics class or another property class? I'm not going to learn anything new there because it's going to be ISO based. If I want that stuff, I'm going to go to the company and get the company product base. But a lot of new people and some experienced people, I've done a lot of CE classes, live CE classes, they'll come and they'll pick up things when they go to those and they'll say, I forgot about that. Like the vacancy clause in the property policy, which is something that's a concern now with a lot of vacant buildings. Those things can be forgotten and missed. And going to a CE class, a live CE class can, spark you again to remember that stuff.
Absolutely. Insurance is complex, and FC&S, for those of you who don't know, we're an online reference source for the industry. And one of the things we do is we get coverage questions, okay? And we get coverage questions from insurance departments. We get coverage questions from people with CPCU designations, AIC designations, ARM designations, all of these designations. And these are coverage questions. They're asking us, hey, is there coverage here? Because there are so many different variables that can occur in any given policy. Yeah, you may have a standard policy, but you know what? You may have an odd question. You may have an odd coverage. And so, CE classes and designation programs that give you the foundational knowledge, how to look at a policy, how to deal with defined terms and terms that aren't defined, are significant. They're important. And so that's important. Quality CE, and I'm big on education. I've got my CPCU, FC&S. We read all this stuff. We write all this stuff. We do a lot of research. And the thing is, if you're doing just the cheap CE, you're opening yourself up to an E&O claim. You're definitely setting yourself up for an exposure there, because if you don't know the coverages, if you don't know the new forms, you're really putting yourself at risk there. Let's look at a couple of other comments that have come in, because we have a wonderful active audience, which I think is fabulous. Back to training new people, someone mentioned, have new hires sit in on all meetings, carrier meetings, strategy meetings, sales meetings. It helps them see the big picture. Another question is from someone who's, taken time off, had been in insurance, but had taken time off to raise kids. Absolutely. Taking classes to get back into the swing of things, fabulous. Catch up with what the industry has been doing. Great way to get back into it. And here we've got a theater and an opera major, which I love. And, talking to, because insurance is fascinating. We've got a lot of, this is kind of a tangent, but I am the dead body chick. We've answered questions about dead body cleanup, legitimate coverage questions, and the American Biorecovery Association loves me because they agree with my position. And I've spoken to them a couple of times. So you never know what you're going to run into. There's a lot of interesting things in insurance. And so let's see, what else do we have out here? Yeah, reinforcement. Because again, you do forget things over time. And it's always good to have reinforcement. I've got a couple of folks chiming in here that, yes, go to the good classes. It's reinforcement. Someone says they learn something every single time they go. Absolutely. Another comment here: to convince the CEOs, agency owners that CE is required to frame it as a risk management problem. If you miss a coverage problem, you got bad faith, and that's huge. And yeah, all sorts of different things. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges out there, and I think that using live CE classes and also online resources can help with that. We have a big challenge in the industry now over business income because of the pandemic. And is that something that, is going to be covered because there's court cases around that? The insurance company's position was no physical damage, no coverage. But the question is, what did the wording look like? Going to a class on business income is probably a great idea at this point. Pandemic insurance is something that I think a few companies had before this pandemic. Now I think more companies are jumping into that marketplace. Going to a training class on that. I don't know if there's any CE classes on that yet, but there's another place that people can get some really good information.
Absolutely. Just another comment here. Agencies that someone has seen agencies more worried about sales versus the training or education, which, in the short term, it's making a money. In the long term, it's putting a lot of things at risk.
Agreed. I think a lot of people look at it as time away from work instead of bettering their,
Absolutely. And I've got another comment here, and it's important to teach about engagement with regulators. If there are things about the industry don't like, work with your regulators and your trade associations. And that's a significant thing. Even with ISO, because ISO, who create all the forms, they talk to agents, they talk to the industry, and they develop coverages and new forms based on input from the industry. So yeah, it's very important to talk to the regulators and know the industry as well. So let's move on here. Let's look at polling question number 3. And let me get that up here. Do you prefer classroom training or online training or a combination of the two? What do you all like? So we'll give you a chance to weigh in here. And whether you like classroom, online, a combination. We've got a comment here that was someone who prefers classroom every time. Networking opportunities abound. And that's a very good point. And something that I see, I'm in, while you guys answer the polling question, I'm in one of the insurance Facebook groups, and people are always asking questions and learning from each other. Hey, how do I do this? How do I do this? And since Facebook is universal, people are saying, hey, I can't cover this in this state. Can you help me out here? And they're more than happy to do so. So there's a lot of that. So we'll give you another few seconds to answer our poll. Do you prefer classroom, online, or both? And the results on this are really interesting. It's not what I would have thought. So it's neat. Ah, yeah, somebody else is on Insurance Soup. Yeah, that's the group I was talking about. And let's see, one quick comment. According to the 72-10 model in learning and development, only 10% of 10% of how people learn is in a formal setting. 90% is on-the-job training, application, and practice. What tools are available to close the talent gap for those coming into the industry needing just-in-time learning? Well, that's a really good question. What tools are available? All right, so let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and close our poll and we'll put up the results. And so 21% prefer classroom training, 10% prefer online training, and 69% of you prefer a combination of classroom and online, which is interesting.
I think I fall into that category of the both. Like I love the classroom, same reasons, networking, like absolutely attending things in person. There's some sidebar conversations that are absolutely invaluable. But when it comes to like time and content, if you can do an on-demand webinar on a Tuesday at 3 o'clock, because that's when it fits your schedule and you don't have to drive anywhere, you know, or spend extra money on staying at a hotel or whatever it is to go to classes, it's a pretty good option.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that, and what I look at is how do they get the baseline? And I think classroom can give people a base, and then you add the online on top of that, which helps them when they're out in the field. Because the comment that someone made about, hey, they're going to get only 10% from the classroom, and then they're going to get the rest of it, you know, from experience, is a great comment, because you get the baseline in the classroom, you get the experience in the field, and you get the follow-up to that with your online training. I think that's a great way to structure a training program.
That is a good way. I find that I get distracted with online. My attention just kind of wants to divert and do 2 or 3 different things at once. I'm not as focused online as I am in a classroom, and that the pandemic has only made it worse. It's terrible.
You have to be a little more like self-accountable when you do online stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Here's an interesting comment. If the teacher is the right person, this person will pay for it themselves. They have the training themselves. And self-accountable. And everybody has a different learning style. And I think the combination, having a combination of classes actually works for people with different learning styles.
Yeah.
So,
and I'm sorry.
You can go ahead, Gary.
Go ahead.
Online training, if it's done right, does engage the people in there by asking like these poll questions and having a chat with the questions in it. And you have to do it every 3 to 4 minutes. You have to have something of an activity for the people in an online class to do to hold their attention, because all of us struggle with being in front of a computer and keeping our attention on the screens.
Yeah, absolutely. So since you guys do a lot of teaching, do students respond better to one method over the other?
Honestly, I mean, pandemic forced people to have to do online, and some people that were really resistant of it with us have now done our online classes and keep coming back, and people in their office are using them. We had more people attend our virtual roadshow last year than we ever have in person. And this year we're going to do a virtual. Our roadshow is where we take free education around the state for our members. So last year, like I said, we had to do it virtually. This year we're going to do a virtual day that'll be a live webinar like this. It'll be interactive. The instructor will be on, and then we're going to travel a couple days and take those classes on the road. So I think that's the way forward for us, is doing kind of that hybrid model, still giving that virtual option, but we like being out and about and seeing our members and, getting that networking for, everybody. So we'll continue to do classroom too.
Right. Super. Do you see any difference in age? Do do younger students do better online and older students do better in person, or is it just all depending on the individual person's learning style?
I think it depends on the learner, honestly. I had more resistance with some of our older members wanting to try online, but when they did it and realized how easy it was, they're like, oh wait, this is what I've been fighting against this whole time.
Yeah, you do see resistance from the older people in the industry because they don't have that much exposure to it. You get more acceptance from the younger people because they're used to that. They're doing things in social media. They're listening to blogs and so forth. So that makes it a little more comfortable for them. But like you mentioned, Cassie, these people who are older and they go out and they get some of this training and they realize, wow, I don't have to leave my office. It's right here. And if it's good training, they're like, hey, this is an option for me to use going forward.
Right. Here's an interesting comment from one of our audience members. Younger people think they do better online, but in person without the distraction of a cell phone or whatever has yielded people passing the test at a higher rate on the first attempt. And so that speaks to what I was talking about earlier. I get distracted when I'm online. Especially working from home, the cat wants out, the cat wants chow. I get distracted. I want a snack, it's all about the snacks. So yeah, I can see that. So, okay. Any other comments, Cassie or Gary, that you'd like to share with the audience? And audience, any other questions you'd like to ask? Send them in.
I will say.
I think we covered all. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Gary.
Go ahead.
Now we're looking at the CLCS again. Our first apprentice to complete the program finished her hours up in January. She got licensed last summer, so she is licensed and has her apprenticeship certificate, and then rolled straight into taking the CLCS, and just completed it last week. So pretty excited about that for her.
And I think that, like I mentioned, we've expanded our training program over the last couple of years to include all the way from recruiting new hires, pre-licensing, sales training, prospecting, technical training. Over the last about 2.5 years, we've expanded it. And I think that's the way to go. Have a full library of training for people and resources.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see, we've got ad here of all our designation programs. We've got a quick question. Are there opportunities for educators to engage in order to help solve this problem? If you guys know of any opportunities, let us know, and we can, we've got a couple other slides here. Benefits of attaining a designation. The insurance industry loves designations, as many of us know. The national underwriter designations are very nice. They're inexpensive, but they're quality. They're foundational knowledge that really sets people up to succeed in the industry. There are optional CE credits. So if you have any questions, please let us know. We're more than happy to give you that information. We're going to give you Cassie and Gary's contact information in your follow-up email. We'll make sure you have that information. We have a record of all your questions that you sent in and all your comments. We'll be able to hook you up. Some of you who asked specifically to talk to Cassie, we'll be able to get you guys hooked up. You can go to www.coveragespecialist.com to look at all the national underwriter designations. If you have any questions, just let us know. You can, just for quick reference, if you have questions after this, feel free to send them to me, cbarlow@alm.com, and I will direct them to the proper person. And see, there you go, there's my email address. We're delighted you came. We're glad to have you all here. It's been a fun discussion, and don't forget to fill out the survey once we sign off, because we'd like to know what what other topics you'd like to see. What would you like to discuss? What would you like to learn? Let us know that. And I don't see any other questions coming in, so I'm going to thank Cassie and Gary for their time this afternoon and having this discussion with us about the knowledge gap, which is a huge issue within the industry. And again, if you have any questions, send them to me, cbarlow@alm.com. And I thank everybody for your time and have a fabulous rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.